They're the stories that define us.
Every time it rings, that's the very first thing that we all think is what's going on at the house.
That inspire us.
What goes through your mind when you hear Maria at the clinic saying you're a hero?
I don't think I'm a hero. I'm just doing what I gotta do.
And that bring us together.
PANTHERS.
Let's go, baby, let's go.
Tonight, CBS News Miami celebrates the stories of South Florida.
Good evening. I'm Lauren Pastrana. I hope you've had a Merry Christmas. And to all who celebrate, we wish you a Happy Hanukkah and a Happy Kwanzaa. Tonight, we want to share with you the compelling stories from our community over the last year. Stories of hope, perseverance, and determination. We've all heard the phrase stranger danger, but after several attempted abductions in Broward County and a violent attack on a woman rollerblading on Miami Beach, we wanted to bring you some ways we can better protect our children and ourselves. CBS News Miami's Terry Hornstein has the ways to stay safe.
What is exposed on me right now?
Sonia Terra's son Luca is just 4 years old, but she says she wants him to learn now how to best protect himself.
And I think it's life-changing for the parent and the child, so the sooner you do it, I think the better.
So she took him to train to survive tactics for a class put on by owner and police sergeant Stephen Lopez.
How do you feel about the class?
Good.
Predators are on the prowl, and they have so many ways to access the kids now.
Lopez started Train to Survive with his wife for just that reason.
You start your day, you go through your day, and you kind of forget that the world exists until something bad happens.
That's why Lopez says it's more important now than ever to offer courses like these.
When you don't have training to resort back to in an event of an emergency, so they just freeze up. We need to give people options, training.
Through that training, parents learn how to better protect themselves and their children. And children learn how to spot danger.
It works on both ends. If the parent doesn't know what the child's learning, how can the parent follow up and encourage those teachings?
We asked Lopez what a child or adult should do if ever faced with someone with a gun.
Run. Always get out. Evade first. Evade, run, hide, fight.
Lopez says being aware of our surroundings is one of the most important things we can do.
We shouldn't be buried in our phones, texting away when we're going through a place of vulnerability.
Chris Best with Miami Beach Police agrees.
Walking in a well-lit area and just simply being aware of your surroundings.
His department also offers training through a 3-hour women's self-defense course.
Attendees learn the fundamentals of defensive tactics, learn the coursework of how to be more prepared.
No matter what course you take, Lopez says that preparation is key to teaching our children and learning ourselves what to do if we're ever faced with danger. Terry Hornstein, CBS News, Miami.
For the last 2 years, CBS Miami has dedicated time to illuminating Alzheimer's. We brought you personal stories of the people fighting to keep their memories through treatment and trials. This year, we caught up with 57-year-old Suri Velez. She's been living with the disease for the past 5 years, but she refuses to let it slow her down.
I'm not going to stand by and wait till it catches me. I'm going to put up a fight.
1 year later, Suri Velez still has that same mentality.
I'm going to fight. I have to fight.
In the battle between Suri and the disease threatening to erase her memories, Suri feels she still has the upper hand.
I have seen improvements. My girls have seen improvements. They've mentioned, oh my God, you remembered that. Like, oh my God, I remembered that.
Just like last year, Suri is still driving weekly from her home in Key Largo to a clinic in Miami to get her medication.
From door to door, it's 70 miles, one way. So I travel 140 miles each visit, round trip.
Diagnosed 5 years ago, she's part of an ongoing clinical trial of a drug to treat Alzheimer's disease.
The shots hurt, so I try not to think about it because I can make myself pass out of fear, and I don't want to do that, so I don't think about it.
Each week, she comes to this office at the HCA Florida Mercy Hospital campus for treatment.
Come on in. How was your ride? Not bad?
It was great.
Behind this door, she's given 2 injections. Suri says they're so painful, she'd rather us not show it on TV.
It's not easy. She's a hero. She's doing it for us. For, because my mom had Alzheimer's. She's doing it for our future and for her daughter's futures. How do you feel?
It's there.
It's so quick, but not painless.
No, it's not painless. It is not painless. It's quick now, because now it's just shots, but painless, it's not. It takes my breath away. But, you know, the alternative is so much worse. I'd rather remember the pain.
What goes through your mind when you hear Maria at the clinic saying you're a hero?
I don't think I'm a hero. I'm just doing what I gotta do. Not only to protect myself, but to protect my children.
The drugs being studied are meant to reduce amyloid plaques that form in the brain, a defining feature of the disease. The FDA approved one such drug last July, lecanemab, just weeks after we first met Suri. But she's part of a blind study, so she doesn't know if she's actually getting the medication or a placebo.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting. It hasn't killed me yet, so we're good.
The potential side effects don't scare Suri, at least not as much as full-blown Alzheimer's.
I pray every time I get my shot. Every time. I pray because it hurts, and I pray that it works. I will use everything I can use to battle this disease. And if it's prayer, it is prayer. And if it's shots, it is shots. And I know that God works through people. And I have to have faith in the people that are doing the study.
On this particular visit, she stopped by the church next door with hope in her heart.
I'm just hopeful that we get a cure or even a prevention, just something out of it, because I don't want to be doing all this in vain, you know. But like I said, I don't think I am. I think we're on the verge of something really great.
I'm keeping in contact with Suri and will bring you updates to her story as they develop. In the meantime, you can watch both of our Illuminating Alzheimer's specials anytime. Just visit cbsmiami.com and click on the Illuminating Alzheimer's graphic for all of our reporting. For women battling breast cancer, having a double mastectomy is often considered a way to prevent cancer from coming back, but that's not always the case. CBS News Miami's Maribel Rodriguez spoke with a local woman whose cancer returned years after her surgery.
My journey started in 2014. I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids.
You were how old?
At that time, I had just turned 41. While I was doing the mammogram, they saw something. And they're like, let's do a biopsy. So we did, but life went on as usual. 2 days later, I was volunteering at the Hispanic Heritage Festival at school, and I get the call. They're like, you have invasive ductal carcinoma. And I was like, what is that? I had no idea. I was like, what are you saying? I couldn't even hear them because I was in this festival so loud, and they're like, ma'am, you have breast cancer.
Natasha Santamarina is a wife and mother of 3. Like many of us, her life is busy, and that made making time for a mammogram difficult, but not nearly as difficult as getting the life-saving news she had cancer and would need a double mastectomy and chemotherapy.
It was difficult because I, had to be, have that mom and had to put that brave face on for my kids and not, because they were freaking out, and, so I was like, everything's great and nothing's wrong, but it was hard to hide it when you're walking around bald and everyone's like, what's wrong with your mom? And so it was tough, but we got through it, and I thought everything was going great.
And it was for a while, but 3 years later, the cancer came back.
People ask, how is that possible? You had a double mastectomy. How could you, have breast cancer again? But when you do a double mastectomy, they only really remove like 95% of the tissue. So some residual tissue was there, and a tumor grew.
So it happened again?
So it happened again.
What was going through your mind, and what kept you strong during all that time?
The love and support from my family, my husband, my kids, my friends. So many showed up, bringing me dinners and working out. I would go to the gym even though I didn't feel well.
She credits her positivity and love for life and her family that kept her going until that day she got to ring the bell, signaling she's cancer-free.
When I speak to all my girlfriends and they're like, oh, I haven't gone in for my mammogram, I'm like, what are you waiting for? Don't be afraid, because catching it early is where you have the higher chance of being totally curable.
Maribel Rodriguez, CBS News, Miami.
Women who have a double mastectomy after being diagnosed with breast cancer are less likely to develop cancer in the other breast, but a recent study by JAMA Oncology found having the surgery does not, on average, improve their long-term survival. Still to come, mental health matters, especially for our first responders who put so much on the line for us every day.
I think Alex dedicated his life to saving lives. I think it's time for us to take his legacy and just continue and help others.
How she's hoping to prevent our emergency responders from taking their own lives when the Stories of South Florida returns. Here at CBS Miami, we've been spotlighting the mental health crisis across our community. We recently focused on the work of a local priest to help firefighters coping with PTSD in honor of his own late brother. This past summer, another firefighter, Miami-Dade Lieutenant Alex Acosta, took his own life. I sat down with his widow to see how she's determined to sound the alarm on first responder mental health.
He always had that smile. He had the best smile.
But behind that smile, Alex Acosta was trying to overcome his hidden pain.
He was an incredible husband, father, friend. He was just good all around.
It's been just over 5 months since Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Lieutenant Alex Acosta died by suicide. He was 49 years old, a husband and father, a longtime member of the Air Rescue Division, and he was battling post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's one thing about Alex is like he had his tough side as far as like when it came to work and stuff, but then also compassion. He was so loving, always expressed how he felt about us, me and my son, even with friends.
Carolyn Acosta says her husband was going to therapy, sometimes multiple times a week. She noted he was having trouble sleeping and seemed anxious. But Lieutenant Acosta, like many other first responders, kept his inner battle to himself.
He never really talked about it, but I know that it wasn't pretty, whatever he saw.
In the wake of Lieutenant Acosta's death, Fire Chief Ray Jadala shared this message.
Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Alex's passing is a stark reminder of the struggles many of us face every day, but oftentimes ignore for many reasons. It could be for fear, shame, stigma, or simply because we just don't know how to face our own troubles.
The National Fallen Firefighters Foundation estimates that there are between 100 and 200 firefighter deaths by suicide each year, roughly double the rate of the general population.
What has made you want to come out and be so vocal at a time when no one would fault you for not wanting to talk about this?
Well, I feel like the problem was with Alex is that nobody talked about it. So he was holding all this inside, and I feel like a lot of first responders are feeling the same.
Carolyn has created the First Alarm Foundation to break the stigma surrounding mental health in the first responder community.
So first alarm is the first alarm that goes off, and I think that's usually in your home. And I feel like sometimes we can see things or feel things at home and maybe we're not saying outside.
Carolyn says clinicians dealing with first responders need to be trauma-informed and well-versed in PTSD to be better able to relate to these firefighters in crisis. The First Alarm Foundation has already gotten the attention of policymakers and local leaders, including Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava.
The emotions come in waves, but I know that I'm heading in the right direction because so many doors are opening, so I know this is the right thing to do. I think Alex dedicated his life to saving lives. I think it's time for us to take his legacy and just continue and help others.
Carolyn says firefighters have something called Kelly Days, paid days where they don't have to work. She says she'd like to see something like an Alex Day, a paid day specifically for firefighters to tend to their mental health. South Florida natives will tell you this is the time of year we live for. Cooler temperatures, less humidity, and virtually no rain. That's something that's become a relief for people who've had their fill of floods over the last couple of years. Just take a look at the numbers. The average rainfall in Miami is more than 67 inches a year. According to the National Weather Service, 3 out of the last 5 years were above that average. Last year, nearly 16 inches above it. But does that mean the way it rains has changed? CBS News Miami's chief meteorologist Ivan Cabrera has the science behind our rainfall.
It's all South Florida is talking about. The weather.
It seems to get like it's getting a little bit hotter.
If it's not the heat, it's the rain.
Seems to be a little bit more sporadic these last few years, and it's just much more unexpected than normal.
A lot of my experience also has been pretty bad, especially when it rains a lot. You definitely see on last year how bad it is.
Summertime storms rolling in isn't anything new. Afternoon thunderstorms filled with lightning, moving in and moving out, considered normal. But seeing entire neighborhoods experience a 500, even a 1,000-year flood, that is not normal. But it is concerning.
I grew up down here, so the flooding, I feel, is something new to me, especially over the last few years.
That's especially true for Fort Lauderdale resident LaTanya Frost. I visited her home where she told me there's no such thing as a typical rainstorm.
Every time it rains, that's the very first thing that we all think is what's going on at the house. So some people have to rush back home to make sure that it's okay.
Making it okay includes making sure there's no standing water on their porch, and these to keep the water out.
So I'm looking at sandbags in front of your front door, but there's no storm coming. That is remarkable. Tell us why you're doing this and what's happened that you now have to live with permanent sandbags in front of your house.
Because of the rain.
Yeah.
I mean, it rains a lot, and you know, it's rainy season, so every time it rains, it floods here. So we have to put the sandbags in front of the door to keep the rain from getting in.
Her home, just one of many affected by the historic rainfall we've seen. Is this the new normal? To answer that question, we head back into the studio.
As the planet warms and the water temperatures continue to warm, we are going to experience more of these severe and intense precipitation events because warmer air can hold a lot more moisture, so more evaporation, more precipitation, and that's going to result in the kind of flooding that we've seen over the last several years here across South Florida. In fact, since 1950, 8,726 floods. Out of those, human-caused climate change caused 67% of those.
As for Frost, she's just hoping for change.
Just fix it. I mean, find another way as far as to stop the rain from coming in the house. I mean, because it's a burden, really.
Yeah.
It's a burden.
Yeah, and I'm sure you get angry at times. It's
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
who wants to deal
Do
with
this
something like
all
that?
the time when it's raining.
Still to come, Julia Tuttle is the mother of Miami, right? Why one historian wants you to give another pioneer consideration when this CBS News Miami special, Stories of South Florida, returns. You don't have to know much about Miami history to know these names: Brickell, Tuttle, Flagler. They are more than just street names. They are real people, all critical to the birth of the city of Miami. Julia Tuttle has long been considered the mother of Miami, but is she the only one? As CBS News Miami's Hank Tester shows us, some scholars think there's actually two.
The legend that has almost become fact. Julia Tuttle, mother of Miami, first woman to found a major American city. Julia has a causeway named for her, a statue in Miami's Bayfront Park. In all the history books she is, but could Miami have another mother, a co-mother?
There's an overwhelming amount of evidence that Mary was a main big shaker in the birth of the city.
Mary, as in Mary Brickell. That's the take of Cesar Becerra, historian, lecturer, author of the book Making Mary Brickell's Case.
You cannot remove Mary from telling the birth story of Miami.
And on this day, Mary Brickell's great-granddaughter speaking during a lecture series at the University of Miami.
I have nothing against Julia Tuttle, but I think Mary's vision and work during her lifetime far exceeded anything that Julia Tuttle did.
Mary Brickell, English-born, Australian-reared, met and married American entrepreneur William Brickell in a small and rough and tumble Australian gold rush town. The Brickells arrived at the mouth of the Miami River in 1871 after acquiring over 2,000 acres of land along the Miami River and another parcel along the New River in Fort Lauderdale. That was on the south side of Miami River that the Brickells established.
First post office, the first bank, the first store.
It was Mary who did the business deals, the negotiations, as Williams had put all the property in her name.
She really had a vision, and more than a vision, she actually made it work. And that's pretty impressive.
1898. Sadly, Julia Tuttle dies 6 years after reaching Miami, 2 years after Flagler's Railroad arrives. Mary lives for another 24 years. The Brickell land south of the Miami River becomes Millionaire's Row, fabulous mansions. now the site of Miami's Brickell Financial Center. Mary inspires Brickell Hammock, which attracts huge crowds of buyers. We know the development today as the Roads.
I think that she was a person who was a woman who was totally focused on making Miami into a wonderful place.
A small monument to Mary Brickell in the heart of Brickell. The hope of Caesar Becerra and B. Brickell is that Mary will receive equal billing as the co-mother, founder of the city of Miami. I'm Hank Tester, CBS News, Miami.
Speaking of our history, the Florida Panthers made some of it this summer. And our Mike Cunio caught up with the fans who traveled a very long way to cheer them on. That's next. We couldn't end this year without showing some love to our Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. But not just the team, they're dedicated fans who traveled nearly 3,000 miles to cheer on the Cats during their historic run. CBS News Miami's Mike Cunio caught up with some of them on the road to hockey glory.
The Panthers' shirtless viral sensation wasn't going to let his team go to enemy territory alone.
How do you spell Edmonton?
Capital P-A-N-T-H-E-R-S.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. We out, boy.
Bryson and his dad packed up after Game 2 and shipped out, getting recognized along the route from Miami to Edmonton.
He said, holy smokes, it's the flexing kid, the shirtless flexing kid.
But just like most people, they went through hours and hours of weather delays, their trip taking 29 hours door to door.
We were supposed to leave at 2 o'clock. Then it got delayed after delay after delay. So we landed in Minnesota. So then we had to stay there the night. And then in the morning, we went to Winnipeg. And then we went to Edmonton.
Bryson may be a little jet lagged, but the kid hasn't lost his fastball when it comes to the trash talk. He did more than just flex on the great one. You got the Wayne Gretzky statue right there. He's holding a Stanley Cup.
He's horrible.
Bryson isn't alone. Chris Edemont has gone to every playoff game this postseason, from Tampa to Boston, where his son got a stick from Vladimir Tarasenko, and even to New York. Now they're here north of the border. How happy were you that you were able to get out of South Florida last night?
Ecstatic. I mean, if I missed the flight, I would have probably cried, and I don't cry often.
You guys came prepared. What's it been like? You just got chirped, as they say, by the.
You know, like when we were in the arena in Florida. New York fans and Boston fans. I mean, they were all
friendly chirping.
These are friendly people. Those guys
chirping.
really know what it's like to beat people up.
It's the most polite chirping that you can experience.
They're wishing us good luck, but not too much.
Yeah, for sure.
And everything's followed by A. I love it.
Of course, it took the Panthers 7 games to raise Lord Stanley's Cup, but what a party it was on the beach in Fort Lauderdale. We can't wait to do it again next year. And that'll do it for this CBS News Miami special celebrating the stories of South Florida. I'm Lauren Pastrana. We thank you for joining us, and on behalf of the entire CBS Miami team, happy holidays, and we wish you a happy and healthy new year. Good night.